meant to achieve before that happens. Now I can back off very quickly just so you're not that freaked out. You're actually not going to die. You're a soul, you're pure consciousness. Pure consciousness never dies, souls don't die, but the body that you inhabit, temporarily that is going to die, but there is a reason that you're in the body. And you have to understand what is that reason, and you have to then work towards achieving that. That's very, very simple. So what we're going to do in this course together is we're going to build out the whole purpose of why you're here. And first we're just going to do it in a very general way that I believe all of humanity can buy into. And then we're going to get a little bit deeper into the Kabbalistic underpinnings of the whole of reality, which is very important as well. So I grew up in England, not religious, strong Jewish identity, played lots of sport, rugby, the greatest sport. You look like a rugby player. Rugby? No? American, Australian rules?
Football,
Australian rules or just... Anyway, football, I played soccer, football, and tennis. I played lots of sport, and then I basically went to university, studied philosophy, was a dance music DJ, lots of that kind of lifestyle, if you know what I mean. And I started to see that very few people were actually particularly happy. Very few people living happy, meaningful, empowered lives. So I thought to myself, that doesn't make sense. Surely we're meant to embrace life. We're not just meant to be hanging in there. So I started asking people a very fundamental question, which was, how are you? How are you? The top 5 answers to that question were not too bad, can't complain, hanging in there, could be worse, fine, which stands for feelings inside, not expressed. So it's like everyone's basically lives a pretty mediocre life, and then they get old, and getting old is terrible, because suddenly you're just you can't walk, and it's just bad, and then you die. So statistically speaking, you're going to have a bit of a struggle. Life will be okay. 67% divorce rate, 82% of people don't like their jobs. Financial issues, relationship issues, sense of self issues. Your kids are just gonna have AI in their brain. Your kids are gonna be robots. They're gonna smoke more weed than you, and fortnight, they'll just have it in their and that will be it. And then you're basically your life's not going to be great, and you're going to have a vacation once a year for 2 weeks, and you go scuba diving, and that will feel good. But that's about it. So, really, statistically speaking, you're going to have a not particularly great life, and then you're going to die. And that doesn't seem okay to me. So I was like, I want to work out what is life, and how am I going to create a great life. How am I going to be a great person and have a great life? So, who do you think are you going to have a great life? I hope so. I have Ruach HaKodesh. That's called divine inspiration. 95% of people who I say, are you going to live a great life? They say, I hope so. Which is a sure sign that they're not. Because hoping to is not going to do that. You can hope all you like, but if you don't know what a great life looks like, and you don't know how to achieve it, you won't. So I hope to be the best tennis player in Israel. I'm smoking weed and watching Netflix all day, but I just hope to be the best tennis player in Israel. I'm not going to work. So life's very easy, actually. There are just 3 steps. Number 1, work out the goal. What is it that you're meant to achieve? What does greatness look like? How to define greatness? What does greatness look like? That's the goal. You have to start with the goal in mind. If you don't start with the goal in mind, then you're not going to achieve anything. Just say, well, I'll just see where life takes me. Someone said that to me in one of my classes, by the way. He regretted that for the rest of his life, actually. You're like 38 years old, sitting at the back of my class, and I said, what are you doing with your life? And he said, I'll just see where life takes me. And I said, what are you, a jellyfish? You see where life's not taking you anywhere good. You're going to get divorced, have financial issues, or you'll be really, really rich, but you'll be greedy and jealous, and you'll have anxiety. So life's not taking you anywhere good. You don't want to be a jellyfish, you want to be a shark. You want to say, that's where I want to go, that's my goal, and then you want to do that. So the number one thing you have to do if you want to be a great person living a great life is work out what does that mean. Let's define great person, let's define great life. In very, very clear terms, by the way. Not just like, well, I'd like to have a job that I like, and a nice family, and be healthy, and go on. No, I want clarity here. You have to have immense clarity. If you want to achieve something, you have to have immense clarity. What does that look like? What am I working towards? Very, very important. Number 2 step of living a great life is you have to work out what does it take to achieve that. Surely that's clear, by the way. And I've got a little secret for you. There's not very much that I'm going to say in these classes that you don't already know. There are very few things I'm going to be sitting here and I'm going to say, and you're going to say, oh my goodness, I never thought of that. You just be like, oh, I'm just not doing that, that's obvious, I'm just a loser. So it's very, very, very easy to be a loser. You don't want to be a loser. But it's very easy to be. So number 2 step of living a great life is, well, what does it take to achieve the goal? What is the goal? That's number 1 step. What does it take to, so this goes in everything. I want to go to Netanya. So I put in Waze, or I put in Google Maps, Netanya, that's my goal. And then I press directions. And then I can see how to get there. So do you want to be a happy person? Good. So you have to define happiness. And the second step is, well, what does it take to become happy? That's it. Do you want to lose weight? Well, what does it take to lose weight? Do you want to gain weight? What does it take to gain weight? Do you want to let go of your anxiety? What does it take to let go of anxiety? Do you want to be rich? What does it take to be rich? Do you want to be close to God? What does it take to be close to God? Do you want to have a good marriage? Well, what does it take to have a good marriage? Everything in life. Once you've identified what it is that you want, and by the way, made sure that you want the right things, are you sure that you've got the right goals? Like, do you want the right things in life even? Then you've got to work out, okay, what is it that's going to take me there? And what's actually going to not take me there? So for example, I want to have a great marriage. Well, then you can't be watching pornography. That's the worst thing for a great marriage. So if you are watching pornography, you better stop that as soon as you can. I'm not saying it's easy, by the way. I'm not going to give you some easy shortcut. If you want to be a great person, you're going to have to do great things. If you want to be an extraordinary person, you have to do extraordinary things. Extraordinary. You don't want to be an ordinary person. You want to be an extraordinary person, which is sad, by the way, because I think everyone should do this. Surely. My grandfather died when he was 100. And before he died, he said to me, you don't want to live, and I should have life. So I said, what do you mean? He said, when you get to 90 years old, you don't have that much to look forward to. So you start looking back on your life and you start thinking, I really should have travelled more. I should have spent more time with my children and less time at work. I should have told my wife more often how much I love her. I should have been to the gym more. I shouldn't have smoked so much weed. I shouldn't have done that. So that, and once you're 90, there's not so much you can do about it. So then you end up, most 90-year-olds regret their lives. Most 90-year-olds regret their lives. So I'm going to help you build a life that when you're 90 years old, you're going to be looking back on your life and say, that was awesome night. How many people do you actually think 90 years old are thinking, I nailed that. That was unbelievable. Very, very few. How are you going to be any different? You're not, unless you listen to what I say and do it. And if you don't, you just have a mediocre life. You'll be alright. What do you think the number 3 step is? Number 1 step is clarify the goal. What is it that I'm living for? What is it? How do I define greatness? How do I be a great person? Number 2 step is, what are the steps I need to take in order to get there? So what's number 3?
Do it.
Do it. Do it. Do those things. If those things are going to take you to where you want to go, do them. And don't do the things that won't take you to where you want to go. This is why I'm brilliant. This is why I'm the rabbi. I'm like so highly paid. And I'm going to save you hundreds of thousands of dollars on therapy and divorce proceedings. Do you understand? You owe me a lot of money already, but you owe me big bucks. What's the goal? What does it take to achieve that? Do them. So some people say, right, Netanya, and they press the directions, and it shows direction. Then they press start, and it says, go 100 meters, and then they get in the car and they drive in the opposite direction. And they don't end up in Netanya. They end up in Gaza. Which you might want to do, maybe. But might not. Clear? Are we very clear now? And you better have a notebook. This guy's going to have a good life. Where's your notebook, right? It's okay. You just but you get what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
You need a notebook. So yeah, it's the first day. It's okay. I'm actually quite nice. I can be nice. But I'm not here to be nice. I'm here to ensure that you live a great life. So, whatever. Nice isn't not. I am nice. I actually. If you have issues and real problems and you're crying, then I'll hug you and I'll cry with you. I'll be nice. But then I'll be like, okay, now I'll be good. Okay, good. Any questions so far? What's the goal? What does it take to achieve it? Do those things. Very simple. That's your whole life. Everything in your whole life from now on. That's it. Great. Good. Everyone good? Okay, so let's start on our journey. Who here would like to live a successful life?
Me.
Yeah. So now we're going to have to do something very, very, very important. And it's going to be very important in everything for the rest of your life. You have to define your terms. What does success mean? Successful life, define that. And not what are the things I'd like in life. I'd like to be rich and have a nice family. That's cute. Those are little things. But how do you define successful life? How do you define success? Would someone like to define success? If you looked up success in the dictionary,
It's relative to your circumstances.
that's what it would say in the dictionary. So I look up success in the dictionary. Well, you don't even do that. Just chat GPT, define success. Well, would you like me to define it? Shut up. Success. Does it say, well, I think it's relative? Define success.
Achieving your goals.
Achieve your
Yeah.
goals. Right, there we go. Success, achieve your goals. Achieve an aim, a purpose, or a goal. If you achieve your aim, your purpose, your goal, then you have success in that area. Very clear, no? So a successful life is, if you achieve your aims in life, you had a successful life. Yeah?
Unless your aims.
Oh, okay. Unless your aims, you didn't even do it. But some people, when I said that, they nodded. They were like, if the definition of success is to achieve your aim, your purpose, your goal, then a successful life is to the extent that I achieved my aims in life, then I had a successful life. But what if your aim in life is to become the world's best Candy Crush player? You know, my goal in life is to stay in bed, smoke weed, eat pizza, play Fortnite. And I'm 90 years old, I weigh 500 pounds, and it's disgusting, I'm very good. Would anyone say I had a successful life? No. Maybe you had success in life. You had success in life. But you didn't have a successful life. You're a fat loser, basically. What if my goal in life is to kill as many... Hitler. Did Hitler have a successful life? Definitely achieved his goal pretty well. 6 million is pretty good. Seems very successful. He was a successful person. He was a very successful person in terms of his goal. Do you think he has a successful life? Because he had the wrong goal. So a successful life is really to the extent that you achieve the right goal, the right purpose, then you have a successful life, which is true in any area. How do you define a successful business person? To the extent they achieve the purpose of the business, they're a successful business person. So if someone's the best tennis player in the world, he's not a successful business person. Well, yes, he probably is. But you get the meaning. A successful business person is, I achieved the purpose of the business, which is to make money doing the business. So if someone's very, 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 very rich because they inherited money, they're not a successful business person. They're very rich, but they're not a business person. If someone does business, they sell lots and lots of cars, but they don't make money, they're not a successful business person. Someone who makes lots of money doing their business, that's called a successful business person. To the extent that you achieve the purpose of the business, you're a successful business person. sports person. To the extent that you achieve the purpose of the sport, you're a successful sports person. Very, very skillful, won lots of trophies, made lots of money, became very famous. Whatever the purpose. Who here would like to have a successful marriage? How do you define a successful marriage? To the extent that you achieve the purpose of marriage, which by the way is emotional intimacy. I'll give you classes on relationships and marriage. But the purpose of marriage is emotional intimacy. So to the extent that you achieve emotional intimacy, then you had a successful marriage. If you have the wrong definition of the purpose, then you won't succeed. So if your purpose in marriage is just to get as much physical pleasure as I can, and you didn't have a successful marriage if she feels unloved. So you have to define. A successful vacation. How do you define a successful vacation? To the extent you achieve the purpose of the vacation. So if your purpose of your vacation was to just really chill out, you've been working hard, just sit on the beach, but then you end up getting stuck in traffic, and then it wasn't successful. If your purpose of your vacation was to go to every art gallery in France, and you go to every art gallery in France, then you had a successful vacation. It was a successful party. Was the party, well, it depends. What was the purpose of the party? If it was to get laid, if you got laid, then it was a successful party. Every single area of life, a successful operation. Has anyone had an operation? Now, how do you define a successful operation? Go. To the extent that you achieve the purpose of the operation, it was a successful operation. So this is our formula. We have a formula now. The definition of success in any area is to the extent that you achieve the purpose of X, you were a successful X. To the extent you achieve the purpose of the business, it's a business. The purpose of the sports, it's a sports. Purpose of the marriage, successful marriage. Purpose of life, same life. Who would now like to define, in my terms, and I hope you agree on, by the way, if you don't agree with anything I say, you have to speak up. I want that, I like that, then we can debate it and I'll show you why you're wrong. Who would like to define a successful life, please? And it has to start with to the extent.
To the extent that you achieve the purpose of life.
To the extent that you achieve the purpose of life, you had a successful life. And I know your next question, but let's just stay in the definition and then we'll get on to your next question. But do we get, that's a fair definition now. To the extent, and why do I use the phrase to the extent? Because there's degrees. I don't think there's something called success or not. I think you can be a more and more and more successful business person. I think you can have a more and more and more successful marriage. You can be a more and more and more successful sports person. You can have a more and more and more successful vacation. So I don't think success is you either did it or you didn't. I think there are grades. You can become more and more successful. So that's why I say to the extent that you. So to the extent that you achieve the purpose of life, you had a successful life. Now no one thinks the purpose, well, not no one, we'll actually have to speak about this. But eating pizza and smoking weed and playing video games, no one says that's the purpose of life. Even the people who do it, by the way, they don't think that's the purpose of life. That's just what they're doing. So most people are just seeking pleasure. I just want pleasure. So most people's purpose in life is to get as much pleasure as they can. Which there might be something to that, by the way. We've got to go a little bit deeper into that. Shalom. Ever said them? I'm sure you were doing something very meaningful.
Oh, actually, a little bit of eye work.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Are you going to live a great life?
Am I going to live a great life? I think I already do.
I like to think I already do. No, I didn't say it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't believe in the whole happy wife, happy life thing. You're happy.
Okay.
Yeah, but again.
So the purpose of life is to be happy?
I think it's part of it. I mean, I believe it's one of our obligations to be happy.
Okay.
It's something we all share in common. Also.
Right. I like it. So this is what we're going to work out now. So we just so far what you've missed is, do you want to have a successful life?
Yes.
So how do we define success? To the extent that you achieve the purpose. So now we've got a definition of a successful life. To the extent that you achieve the purpose of life, you had a successful life. And you've got until, let's say, 1995, hopefully, although much younger and healthier people than you have died recently. So you don't know. Don't freak out, by the way. Don't get all over it. This is a very, very, very important rule in personal growth and Jewish growth and spiritual growth. It has to be approached as an immense, adventurous opportunity, not as an intense pressure, guilt, fear, shame, comparing yourself to other people. In fact, these are probably the 4 greatest enemies of healthy personal growth. Comparing yourself to other people. Unless it's going to motivate you, that's different. You know what? I see that and I'd like to work towards that. Guilt and shame, pressure, and fear. Well, I'm going to do it because I'll go to hell if I don't do it. God will punish me if I don't do it. Very unhelpful. The Jewish approach to personal growth is excited, motivated journey, adventurous journey of opportunity of reaching greatness. That's how you have to approach it. Where do we learn this from? I'm not making it up. Ibdu et Hashem b'simcha. David HaMelech, King David, says you should serve God with joy, not with fear and anger, and definitely not with honor and pride and arrogance. We're doing this with very, very exciting. I'm on this amazing journey of self-discovery. I'm on this amazing journey of growth, and I'm going to keep moving. And, by the way, which is very, very good to know, you're going to fall, and that's okay. Because what defines you more than your failures and your falls is how you respond to your failures and your falls. Do you stay down or do you get up? That's it. In fact, Jewish wisdom teaches that a tzaddik is someone who's fallen. It says 7 times. Deep Kabbalistic meaning to that. You can't be a tzaddik. You can't be great if you never fall. Your fools make you great. But we just have to define what does it mean to be great. What is that? So we're now left, we don't have time to get into it, but we're left with a question. The question is, if the definition of successful life is to the extent you will achieve the purpose of life, you had a successful life, the question has to now be, well, what is the purpose? And that's not a question that is just like when you're 16 and stoned in your backyard and you're just like, what's the purpose of life? I don't know. Get some munchies. Munchies, purpose of life. So we're left with the question, what actually is the purpose of life? What are you here for? Now, we don't have time, but what we're going to now do is we're going to define that not particularly in a spiritual, religious, mystical way. We want to get the underlying basic foundations, because my life, I was a sports person, then a dance music DJ, and then I was in Manchester University. I studied philosophy, and that's when my grandfather was getting old, and I had this discussion, and I suddenly realized if I don't consciously and in a structured, focused way work out what the purpose of life is and how to achieve it, I'm going to end up like a 90-year-old grandfather, 100-year-old grandfather who's going to regret their life. That's it, but not in a weird, scared way. So because I watch lots of martial arts films, I watch lots of Bruce Lee films basically, and I started meditating and doing martial arts. I went to live in Asia for 6 years. So I lived in Sri Lanka and Thailand and India, Korea and Thailand. I got a black belt in Taekwondo, brown belt in Aikido, trained at Shaolin, lots of 10-day silent meditation retreats, climbing in the Himalayas, time in caves and monasteries and volunteering in orphanages. And I just basically said, at the age of 21, I'm going to work out what I'm living for. Now, many people I speak to, like 28-year-old Americans, what they did was they had to decide what degree I want to do. When they're 18, you have no idea what you want to do when you're 18. So, but your parents are pressuring you, well, you have to get a degree. So you're like, okay, I'll do economics and international relations. It's like, how many people actually love their degrees? Very few. How many people use their degrees? Very few. Maybe you're the one person. But very, very few. Do you actually have, we can ask ChatGPT. Okay? There's nothing you don't need to know anymore. Just ask ChatGPT. But basically, the vast majority of people never even use their degree they got. But it was good to do it because it's on your resume. But so you spend 3 to 4 years getting a degree in something you don't really care about, you're never going to use. Now you've got an $80,000 college debt. And you've got to pay it off. But you can't get the job you want to get because you don't have experience. So you have to get some job you don't really want to pay off college debt for a degree you're not going to use. And now you're 28 years old, kind of struggling on some treadmill in the rat race, which the rat race, we all know that even if you win, you're still just a rat. You didn't get anywhere. I was like, I'm not doing that. The whole Western secular world is messed up. I'm not doing that. So I went to live in Asia for 6 years, work it out, basically become a master of mind, body, soul, emotions, and 6 years in Asia. And then I was going to canoe down the Amazon, and I stopped in Israel for 3 weeks, 18 years ago. You can all buy my book, thank you, because I don't want to waste your time telling you my story, and also I can then feed my family. And so we're going to work it out. I noticed one thing though, I'm just going to finish with this. Having studied philosophy at university, many different philosophies, many different religions, I taught Buddhism, I speak Thai, Japanese, Hindi and Korean, taught many different religions, many different philosophies, many different cultures. I found out that basically everyone on the face of the planet agrees on the basic purpose of life. Because some people might be sitting here and saying, what do you mean? There isn't a purpose of life. You create your purpose. I'll decide what my purpose. No. Basically, every single human being on the face of, apart from some weird psycho cult Satan weirdos, everyone basically on the face of the planet agrees on what the basic foundational purpose of life is. And that's what we're going to do tomorrow at 9:30. Please be here at 9:29 with a notebook and a pen. Are there any questions?
What do you say the enemies of progress and growth were before?
The enemies of healthy growth are fear, pressure, guilt, and comparing yourself to others. Fear. You know what? I'm going to put on tefillin because I'm afraid that God will punish me if I don't. Very sick. I'm sick. So even if you're doing the right thing, you're just going to be an unhealthy, weird person.
I have one question. Does that include, well, you probably agree with me that fear is usually like the first step. You start with that kind of, like there's a bigger source, something that I should fear.
Well, I'll give you a couple of revere.
Fear and doubts.
Revere, not fear. Revere. I have respect. I have reverence. I don't fear God. I'm not afraid of God. And I'm not. Are you Sephardi?
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. So I'm not. Like Gehenom, my love.
No one's perfect.
Gehenom. Perfect. That's a very important thing. No one is perfect, and no one's going to be perfect. So you can take that pressure off yourself in the first place. Get rid of that pressure. You're not meant to be perfect. You're meant to become as perfect as you can become. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about healthy self-esteem. We're going to talk about positive attitude. We're going to talk about life goals. We're going to talk about your mission in life. We're going to talk about everything. This is going to give you the structure for creating a great life in every single area. Go ahead.